She's late. That's enough. 3 minutes, sir. Traffic. I said remove her from the panel. She had prepared for 6 months. Her name was on the roster. Her research printed. Her notes tabbed. But the moment she walked into that boardroom, out of breath, still holding her ID, the security guard had already closed the door. And the director, without looking up, had already decided. She wasn't late. She was just black. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Dr. Nia Lawson triple-checked the route. She left home at 6:40 a.m. Presentation saved in 3 formats. Printed notes in hand. Backup blazer in her trunk. It was the biggest opportunity of her career, guest panelist for a national health policy review in Dallas. 7 speakers. Live audience. Federal observers. She was the only black woman on the list. At 7:59 a.m., she pulled into the government complex. Parking was full. She circled twice. Found a lot 2 blocks over. Jogged in heels. Documents tied against her chest. Security stopped her at the front gate. Name? Dr. Nia Lawson. I'm on the panel. The guard checked the clipboard. Didn't smile. It already started. My slot's at 8:30. I'm not speaking yet. He raised an eyebrow. Still late. Let me call upstairs. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. People walked past, some waved in, others greeted by name. She stood still. The guard finally spoke again. You'll need clearance. Wait over there. Over there? I'm a panelist. He shrugged. Upstairs, the boardroom was silent. Inside, the moderator leaned over to the director. Dr. Lawson's outside. How late? 7 minutes. He didn't flinch. Pull her name. We'll proceed without. Sir, her section covers. I don't need excuses. If she can't respect the clock, she can't sit at the table. Back downstairs, Nia was still waiting. Her palms were damp. Her phone buzzed. Text from a colleague. They started without you. She stepped forward. Sir, I'm cleared. You can call Mr. Shelton directly. The guard didn't look up. I said wait. She stared at him. Suit pressed. Hair tied back. Doctoral badge in view. Still invisible. Finally, the assistant came down. A younger woman in flats. Nervous smile. Dr. Lawson? Yes. I'm sorry. The panel's full. We'll add your notes to the appendix. I was confirmed. I have an ID. I understand. It's just, they've decided. Nia's jaw clenched. They've decided? It's above me, ma'am. Her hands tightened on the folder. 6 months. Draft after draft. Hours of unpaid prep. And now she'd become a footnote. A voiceless name on the printed agenda erased in silence. Nia didn't leave. She walked past the security desk. Sat in the waiting lounge. Opened her notes again, not to revise, but to calm her hands. Down the hallway, a speaker's voice echoed faintly through the floor tiles. She listened closely. And in urban districts, maternal mortality disproportionately affects women of color. Her sentence. Her phrasing. Her research. But the voice delivering it was not hers. It was male. Confident. Flat. She stood up. Walked toward the main level. Pressed her ear to the wall. Based on a 2023 clinical review by Lawson et al. They cited her. Quoted her. But never acknowledged she was supposed to be there. She texted the assistant. I'm still in the building. I'd like to submit the policy revisions in person. No reply. She texted again. No response. Instead, she watched a projection on the screen in the lobby, the live stream from the panel. 7 people at the table. 6 white men. 1 white woman. Her nameplate missing. But her slides were still used. Same charts. Same title. No footnote. No photo. No voice. She watched as her data was turned into applause for someone else. The moderator praised the presentation. Concise. Urgent. Grounded in real-world disparity. The presenter smiled. We owe thanks to the research community, especially the overlooked areas. Overlooked? She had lived that data. Worked night clinics. Interviewed grieving families. She was the overlooked area. Her phone vibrated again. An email. Dr. Lawson, we appreciate your material. Time constraints limited participation. We will credit your name in final documentation. She stared at the screen. Final documentation. Her words were valuable, but only when stripped of her presence. Later that day, when the session ended, she approached the assistant again. Who replaced me? The woman hesitated. Dr. Evan Moore filled the gap. He had adjacent work, and we... Adjacent? He's done policy work with the board before. Did he request permission to use my material? She didn't answer. Nia stepped back. No voice. No place at the table. No violation filed. No visible crime. But a theft had occurred. Not of property. Of authorship. Of legitimacy. Of existence. She walked outside. Past the parking lot. Sat on a bench under the Texas sun. And whispered to no one. They didn't say no to my ideas. They said no to me saying them out loud. 2 days later, the email came. Subject: invitation to debrief. Panel participation follow-up. No apology. Just a request to meet with select members of the Health Policy Board for an informal discussion. Off the record. No agenda. No minutes. No legal rep. Nia stared at the message. She already knew what it meant. We erased you. Now let's make it polite. She replied. Confirmed. We'll attend. The room was smaller than the main hall. No windows. Round table. 3 men waited inside. Ties loosened. Smiles wide. Dr. Lawson, we're glad you came. Please sit. She sat. One of them opened a notepad, but didn't write. We heard you had concerns about last week's schedule change. She didn't speak. Just want to clarify, it wasn't personal. Logistics were tight. Dr. Moore was already cleared. She leaned forward. Did Dr. Moore request access to my slides? Pause. It was a collaborative deck. I never approved a collaboration. Another smile. Well, we assumed mutual goals. She pulled a printed agenda from her folder. Pointed. My name was listed here. So was my time slot. One man chuckled. You're clearly passionate. That's valuable. But your reaction came across tense. Tense. She blinked slowly. I watched someone present my work while I stood in the lobby. That's unfortunate. But escalation doesn't help anyone. Especially not in a professional setting. Especially not you. That's what he meant. The second man folded his hands. Look, we want to move forward. We're offering you a place on next month's subcommittee. Smaller role, but still visible. She raised an eyebrow. A place where I won't be allowed to speak? Silence. This isn't punishment, Dr. Lawson. It's redirection. She stood. No, it's containment. They shifted uncomfortably. She gathered her things. I've submitted a complaint to the ethics office. Not for reinstatement, for record. The first man sighed. That's your right. But it's worth remembering how reputations get shaped. Especially for women in policy. She stared at him. I'm not here to be shaped. And left. Outside. Her legs trembled. Not from fear, but from restraint. She walked to her car. Sat in silence. Then pulled out her phone. Opened her notes app. Typed. Meeting lasted 27 minutes. No acknowledgement of removal. Tone coded as emotional. Offer extended with implied consequences. Purpose. Reposition without repair. She saved the file as silencing_techniques_V1. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was choreography. And she was done dancing for other people's comfort. The official response came 5 days later. Typed on letterhead. Neutral font. Cold grammar. We appreciate your feedback. While we regret the confusion, our internal review confirms that scheduling changes were within procedural discretion. No mention of her name being removed. No reference to unauthorized use of her work. No apology. But that wasn't the real problem. The real problem came in whispers. It started with a phone call. A colleague she'd worked with twice before. Just thought you should know. Someone from the board reached out. About what? They asked if you're easy to work with. Nia paused. What did you say? That you're brilliant. Thorough. Intense. She heard the hesitation. And they asked if you ever seemed reactive. She hung up. Sat in silence. Reactive. Then the email trail began. A speaking invitation, quietly withdrawn. A mentorship request, postponed indefinitely. A funding application, delayed for capacity review. Her inbox went from full to silent. Her name became a question, not a reference. Behind closed doors, they were building a new identity for her. Not the doctor who researched maternal disparity. Now it was the one with the complaint file. At the university, her department chair asked for a chat. Casual tone. Coffee in hand. Just checking in. There's some tension around your name lately. Thought I'd offer guidance. Guidance? About staying visible, without becoming confrontational. She nodded slowly. You mean without telling the truth out loud? He sipped. We both know how the game works. She stood. I'm not here to play it. Back home, she opened her laptop. Created a new folder. Retaliation_tracking. She logged everything. The withdrawn talk. The changed funding status. The subtle shift in faculty rapport. She printed each item, highlighted patterns, dated every detail. She wasn't surprised. She was prepared. That night, she added a new page to her journal. They can't refute the data, so they'll erase the person who brought it. She underlined one sentence. This isn't about merit. It's about maintenance. Then she closed the journal and whispered, I've been categorized, but not contained. Nia agreed to speak at a small medical equity summit. Not national, not televised, but live. 50 seats. Student audience. Streamed to one university server. She wasn't paid. She wasn't featured. But she was finally unfiltered. She prepared for a week. Not just statistics. Receipts. Names. Dates. She didn't aim to expose. She aimed to record. Her session was called Structural Disappearance, How Institutions Reframe Presence into Threat. When she stepped to the podium, her voice was steady. She didn't rage. She listed how her panel seat vanished, how her words were quoted without consent, how the response wasn't correction, it was quiet exclusion, how concern for tone replaced concern for truth. She spoke for 17 minutes. One line stood out. You don't have to discredit a black professional to erase her. You just have to wait long enough for her to look difficult. Students took notes. One cried. Another recorded the whole thing. She ended not with a plea, but with a pattern. If it happened to me, it's already happened to someone you ignored. Applause came slow, then loud. But the email came faster. 2 hours later. From her department. Subject, clarification regarding public statements. Polite, polished, poisoned. Dr. Lawson, while we support open discourse, we urge alignment with institutional messaging when referencing affiliated bodies. She stared at the line. Institutional messaging. Her inbox pinged again. Second message. Same tone. Different sender. Dr. Lawson, we request a meeting regarding your recent appearance. It's important to maintain collaborative tone in public engagements. Collaborative tone. She closed the laptop. She hadn't accused. She hadn't named. But they'd heard her clearly, and they'd taken it personally. The next morning, her office door had a note. Typed. Taped. Room reassignment. Pending relocation. No explanation. She opened her journal. I was told to speak truth carefully. I chose to speak it completely. She turned the page. Wrote in red. Now they'll try to punish what they couldn't disprove. But she smiled. Because this time, she had a room full of witnesses. The hallway got quieter. Her students still nodded, but stopped staying after class. Emails dropped off. Lunch invites dried up. Colleagues walked past faster. She was still teaching, still publishing, but now she was a situation. Then came the memo. University-wide Culture Climate Assessment, Phase 1. Internal Review. Language like fog. Undefined terms. Ambiguous intentions. Her name wasn't mentioned, but she felt it. A student slipped a note under her door. They said we should avoid getting involved. She didn't cry. She opened her laptop. Opened a draft she'd started weeks earlier. Title, Reputation Management and Racial Sanitization in Professional Environments. She added new sections. Documented timeline of her panel exclusion. Screenshots of internal emails. Side-by-side analysis of public praise versus private warnings. A subsection titled, From Excellence to Liability in 3 Meetings or Less. She cited studies, quoted legal frameworks, pulled FOIA admissible language. No emotion, just architecture. Each line another brick, each source another anchor. She sent it to a peer-reviewed journal that didn't rely on institutional approval, didn't list her university in the byline, just her name. Nia Lawson, Ph.D. Unaffiliated. No one responded for 6 days. Then came the reply. Accepted with enthusiasm. Target issue, Fall 2025. We believe this contribution will challenge existing narratives. She read the words twice. Not brave. Not important. Challenging. That meant it had weight. That meant it cut. She printed the article, put it in a folder, placed it in her bag. The next day, she held a lecture titled, Invisible Currents, Why Erasure is Louder Than Rejection. Students came. More than usual. At the end, one stood up. Dr. Lawson, why didn't you name names? She looked at them calmly. Because I'm not writing revenge. She held up the folder. I'm writing history. It started quietly. No headlines. No backlash. Just whispers. A shared PDF. A link in a faculty Slack. A quote posted without credit. Reputation becomes strategy when race makes truth inconvenient. Her article moved. Professors forwarded it to each other after hours. Students screenshotted sections. Policy groups flagged it as challenging but precise. No accusations. No lawsuits. But something shifted. The department chair called her in. Just wanted to touch base. You've been busy. She nodded. I publish. That's my job. He smiled tight. It's just, people are starting to talk. About facts? About tone. She blinked. I wrote with footnotes, not adjectives. He leaned forward. Nia, be smart. These things can define a career. She stood. They already did. That evening, her phone rang from a blocked number. A man's voice. You think making noise helps? She didn't respond. He continued. There's ways this could have been handled better. Privately. She ended the call, logged the time, then posted the article publicly. No caption, no tag, just the link. She didn't watch the clicks, didn't track reactions, but emails trickled in. I had something like this happen too. Never had the words for it. You named what we've all lived. I didn't know someone like you could survive this long in that world. Survive. Not win. Not succeed. Survive. She added their messages to a folder. Secondary witnesses. Then came the administrative response. Not a direct attack. Not suspension. Just distance. Her fall courses were reassigned. Her committee roles rotated. One email suggested extended leave to restore collegial balance. Restore balance? She laughed out loud. She opened her notebook. Wrote. They called it imbalance when I demanded to exist. Then added. And they call it healing when I disappear quietly. But she didn't disappear. She requested all her personnel files, all reviews, all minutes from meetings where she was mentioned, cited legal code, used department language. When they asked why, she smiled. I'm organizing my archive. They blinked. For what? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because when truth circulates, fear follows behind it. The notice came on university letterhead. Subject, initiation of internal review, Dr. Nia Lawson. Category, professional conduct and institutional alignment. No accusation. No specific incident. Just phrases like concerning patterns, ongoing disruption, impediments to collaborative function. It was their move, their last card. Erase her by investigating her. She sat at her desk, reading the letter 4 times. No one called. No one met with her. Just paper. Just threat. At the next faculty meeting, seats shifted further from hers. One colleague mouthed, I'm sorry. Another wouldn't meet her eyes. She wasn't angry. She was ready. She opened the folder labeled Proactive Defense. Inside, her entire teaching record, evaluations with scores, committee correspondence, a calendar of meetings where her name had been removed post-publication. She color-coded the documentation, made 3 binders, labeled internal use, legal retention, public archive. The next week, she received a calendar invite. Title, Conduct Review Session 1. Attendees, Faculty Oversight Committee, redacted. Location, closed hearing room, lower campus. She arrived early, button blouse, low heels, pressed folder in hand. The room had no windows. 5 chairs on one side, 1 on the other. She sat alone. No one smiled. The committee chair opened with, This is not a trial. She nodded. Of course not. Because verdicts require procedures. He cleared his throat. We're simply evaluating consistency with institutional expectations. She slid her folder forward. Here is a complete record of my actions. Teaching, publishing, mentoring. Dr. Lawson. You will not find a single breach of policy, but you may find discomfort. If that's now a violation, I suggest amending the handbook. Silence. One member whispered something to another. The chair shifted. The committee may consider your tone adversarial. She leaned forward. My tone is archival. Another silence. They asked questions. Measured. Careful. Not about students. Not about work. About perception. Presence. Reputation. She answered each one. Clear. Unshaken. Indexed. At the end, the chair offered one final note. We encourage reflection. Consider if continued association benefits all parties. She stood. If erasure is your idea of reflection, I decline the mirror. She left the room without looking back. Outside, she sat on a bench, opened her notebook, wrote. When systems can't kill you cleanly, they convince you to bury yourself. Then added, I didn't come here to be tolerated. I came here to tell the truth until it became louder than comfort. Nia renamed the folder. Institutional Memory, a case study in erasure. She built a site. Password protected. Not flashy, just facts. Each page layered by date. Panel removal. Department meetings. Conference redirections. Internal review letters. Communication showing dissonance between praise and sanction. No commentary. Just curation. At the top, a line in bold. This is not vengeance. This is preservation. She sent access to 4 universities, 2 media professors, 1 public archive initiative. Each one replied within 48 hours. This needs to be public. Can we cite this in curriculum? You've created an educational blueprint. She nodded. Final upload scheduled for Monday, 10 a.m. But on Friday, the phone rang. Not her office. Her personal number. Dr. Lawson? Speaking. I'm calling on behalf of the University Council's office. She already knew. Go ahead. We've been made aware of your plans to release documentation. Pause. Certain materials may fall under confidentiality protections. We ask that you reconsider. She stayed silent. This isn't punitive. We just prefer a mediated solution. She answered calmly. I've reviewed the protections. None apply to my authored work, to meeting records where I was present, or to public documentation. You're not protecting confidentiality. You're protecting comfort. The line went quiet. Then, you've made your position clear. The call ended. She logged the number. Screenshot the call log. Added it to the archive. That evening, a colleague texted her. Nia, they're serious. Please just think it through. She replied with a screenshot of her site's landing page. No words. She knew what she was risking. Tenure, funding, position, professional network. But they had already taken those. One cut at a time. The only thing left was authorship. She scheduled the release. 10 a.m. Monday. Set automation. Then wrote a new preface. What you read here is not a story of injustice. It is a record of structure, of gatekeeping disguised as guidance, of silence rewarded and precision punished. She added one last line. The system asked for discretion. I answered with documentation. Then she closed her laptop and went to sleep. Monday, 10 a.m. The archive went live. No press release. No campaign. Just a link quietly posted on a professional listserv. In the first hour, 72 views. By lunch, 500. By evening, over 2,000. Faculty messaged anonymously. Students forwarded it like samizdat. A graduate researcher built a syllabus around it within 24 hours. It wasn't trending. It wasn't loud. But it was indelible. No one could say they didn't know anymore. The university stayed quiet. No statement. No refutation. Just silence, carefully maintained. A week passed. Then 2. Nia still taught. Still submitted grades. Still walked the halls. But now, no one told her to smile. No one told her to be careful. No one asked her to collaborate. Her door had no nameplate anymore. But students knocked anyway. One afternoon, a black student waited after class. He held her printed article in his hands. They said we should look up to you, but never too closely. She nodded. And now? He smiled. Now I know how to survive without shrinking. She didn't reply. Just pressed a hand to the folder in her bag. Still updating. Still logging. Still watching. Not to fight. To record. She understood now. Justice wasn't vindication. It was retention. Making sure the next one wouldn't have to start from scratch. That night, she made a final entry. I wasn't removed. I was documented. And in documentation, I outlived their edits. She locked the file. Made a backup. 3, actually. 1 cloud. 1 drive. 1 envelope in a safety deposit box. Just in case. She didn't win a lawsuit. Didn't headline a protest. But she outlasted the silence. And when systems looked for proof that she didn't belong, they found her archive. Her own authorship. Undeniable. Unapologetic. Unremoved. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.